Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Crypto Insider channel. Thanks for joining me today. It is Monday, December 16th, 2019. In today's video, we're going to talk about safety, security, explore the difference between hot and cold wallets, maybe. We're going to talk about Mark Cuban and some of the misstatements that he's made. I realize this story is a few days old now, but I still see it being circulated in the Twitter sphere. Um, Mark Cuban made some good points about Bitcoin and some bad points about Bitcoin that I think can be attributed to misstatements. Is he right about any of it? We'll look at that. We're also going to talk about two-factor authentication, libertarianism, and maybe some price at the end. I always like to try to hit the price a little bit, even if not much is going on. Um, But before we do all that, this is the time where I beg you and I plead with you to please like my videos and subscribe to the videos. Unless you actually don't like the video, then of course don't subscribe to the channel. I don't want to just get people that hit subscribe just for subscribing's sake. But I think and I don't understand the YouTube algorithm that much. I think what it is the more people, the more likes and subscribers you get, the more likely it is to show your videos to other people that will probably be interested in them, rather than somebody that doesn't have any subscribers. Um, and I could go into more detail on that probably. I'd have to do a little bit of research. We're going to talk about utilization, the purpose of Bitcoin, and so I think the best way to do this is just to jump right into Mark Cuban's article. So, in an article for Forbes by Billy Bambro, um, Bitcoin has a lot of problems. While the world's biggest cryptocurrency has doubled in price over the last 12 months, adoption has stalled and regulators are circulating. And I'm kind of giggling at that because anything that's doubled in price over 12 months to be described as having a lot of problems compared to traditional investments is giggle worthy in my opinion. Uh, Here's where I agree with Mark Cuban. Bitcoin, according to technology billionaire Mark Cuban, and for those of you who don't know, I think he owns the Dallas Mavericks, and is a star of Shark Tank. Too difficult to use, too easy to hack, way too easy to lose, too hard to understand, and too hard to assess a value. I don't necessarily agree with it's too hard to assess a value, but okay. He's warned that despite all those things, Bitcoin could still succeed if it can only overcome one serious hurdle, getting people to actually use it. And I also agree with him there. Value is one of those things, nothing is valuable unless we all agree that it's valuable. And so we tend to place our value in things that have a limited supply. Gold and silver are rare metals, basically, and the lower the supply, platinum has an even smaller supply than gold or silver, so it's therefore more valuable. Now, some of those metals also have utility in manufacturing, and that plays a role in the price of them as well. Um, and he goes on to say, you don't have to convince him, you need to convince your neighbors. If they don't see the value, that is the problem you need to solve. He's not opposed to it. He understands every argument being placed. I agree with this statement as well. The world is littered with great products and services that failed for lack of consumers. That's true. And if you wanna think about it like music, you have a favorite band, you have a favorite artist that you like, or a couple of them. There are probably, for each one that you like, there are probably 10,000 that you would like better that you've never heard of and you will never hear of because they, for whatever reason, don't make it, whether it was the luck or whatever. And the same is what he's saying here with great products and services that just failed. It does happen. What I don't agree with is with the overall sentiment of Mark Cuban, and I don't agree with the too easy to hack and too easy to lose, maybe right now, but as people get more aware of the space and get more information, I think that's gonna drop a little. Um, Let me see here. So let's talk about security. The blockchains themselves that solve transactions and record transactions into the ledger for Bitcoin and Ethereum, XRP, they've never been hacked. So when he says it's too easy to hack, what he's probably talking about are online exchanges and wallets where people have hot accounts. Um, but I would tell Mark Cuban that traditional banks can also be hacked, and I work in this space every day, and I see it happen quite readily. Whether it's an X that guesses somebody's password, or if it's somebody became compromised in a database and they use the same password for everything. Um, Hacking the blockchain, if you wanted to actually hack the blockchain and reverse engineer hashes and try, mess with the ledger, it would be a huge endeavor. It would be like taking over all branches of the U.S. Mint at the same time and minting your own currency. I mean, it would be a huge, huge problem. And that's why there's a discussion in the community about quantum computing. If you have one computer that can do the work of 10,000, then it becomes a little bit scarier, but I believe all the cryptos are working right now to make themselves quantum proof. But I'm going to read more into that because I don't know. And quantum computing, before it's mainstream to where you or I could use it or benefit from it, is probably, I want to say, 2 decades off, at least a decade. Um, but so let's talk about the wallets and how the hacks that you've heard about have occurred. Um, a hot wallet is a software-based wallet, and it's like using an exchange for your wallets and transactions like Coinbase or Kraken. And there's a little bit more vulnerability there because it's internet facing. And you have access to the Coinbase website, so does any potential hacker. And that's where the manipulation will start to occur. A cold wallet is a hardware-based wallet that you own the keys to and you own the physical device. The Ledger Nano is a very popular one, but there are other ones. I myself have had some bad experiences with the Ledger Nano, and some good experiences with the Ledger Nano. Uh, so I'm kind of on the fence with the Ledger Nano. I'd like to explore some different hardware wallets. So if you guys have any suggestions for other hardware wallets that are not ledgers that you like, pop that in the comments section and I'll go check them out. The thing about hot wallets is because these exchanges they want to be secure because um, that's their reputation on the line, right? They want to be as secure as possible. So now you have a lot of two-factor authentication, and you have it at multiple steps throughout throughout the process. So you may need to authenticate to log in with your password, then you may need to use an app like Google Authenticator in place of that. And if when you go to send or receive cryptocurrency, you may have it also at that step where we have to authenticate again. And two-factor authentication is great. It is, it's probably the best we have. And for your average sort of run-of-the-mill hacker, they're not going to get past it. Sorry, having a sip of coffee here today. It's still early for me. um, However, there can be two-factor authentication attacks, and we've seen it happen before with. Let's see if I. What do I have here? I don't have it here, but if you want to look it up, I don't have the page open to it. Um, There's a man suing an AT&T store, and I read this article at the end of October. He's suing AT&T because their employees were engaging in SIM swapping. He took his phone in to be serviced, or to be viewed or whatever, and they took the SIM, they swapped it, they got because they then owned the phone. Basically, they could bypass a lot of this two-factor authentication because they see the code pops up, bam, they enter it in, and they stole a bunch of crypto from this man. So if you want to look more into that, it's AT&T is the service provider, and I think the article is from the end of October. Uh, Mark Cuban then goes into utilization, and I think he might have it wrong about the intended purpose of Bitcoin. Half the holders of Bitcoin are libertarians. So we're going to talk about libertarians for a second. Libertarians are they're a political party, and they are just as right and righteous, and they are exactly perfect about every political view they have, just as much as a Democrat or a Republican. But not to get too much into politics, the basic idea of a libertarian, it means that the liberty is owned by the individual, and where Mark Cuban seems to think there is more of a retail aspect, or that um, that's the intended purpose, is to buy your coffee at Starbucks. That's not necessarily the case. The use case that Bitcoin solved for a lot of people were that it put you in charge of your own money. Think about it. A court can put a judgment on an individual and garnish wages and bank accounts. If you have all your money on a hardware crypto wallet, or you know, they can still garnish your wages and bank account, but they can't get a hold of that unless you give them the keys. Um, and some Bitcoin enthusiasts are mistakenly, but under the impression that Bitcoin is anonymous. And it can be, up until the point where you open an account on an exchange, a hot wallet account basically. Um, at that point, a lot of them are now following the Know Your Customer and anti-money laundering laws. That means they will identify you, or make sure that they've given best effort to identify you before they will let you transfer funds. Libertarians like cryptocurrency. They kind of have this distrust of the government, rightly or wrongly. They look at it like, what has the government done so well that we want to give them control of our healthcare and our money? What is their track record that proves to us how competent they are? And they look back and they don't see it. So they would rather have the control of their own money, and they also like that it denationalizes money. A lot of libertarians are very free trade between everybody, um, and rather than pegging the value of money to one nation, they kind of like it, this just sort of decentralized money. So let's look at our libertarian article, and I had with their contempt for government. Yeah, that's probably there. I was a little nicer the way I said it. And its perceived excessive role in society have flocked to Bitcoin. This article, wait, let me give credit to Jose Alvarez, who published this a year or two ago. Traditional methods of managing money are inefficient and counterproductive. Central banks, which control the money supply, are entities of the state. They don't trust the corporations either, or the financial payment networks like Visa and Mastercard. Um, Let me see. Libertarian activists such as Roger Ver have some of the most vocal proponents of the cryptocurrency, noting that it's a chance for the individual to be in complete control of his or her own funds. So you can read more if you want to look at this blockonomy.com article by Jose Alvarez, but what really stuck out to me was the online survey by Lee Smith, I don't know how you pronounce that, a University College London researcher, an astounding 44.3 of Bitcoin users identify themselves as libertarians. That's a lot of libertarians. To put it this way, when a libertarian runs for president in the United States, and they always do, there's always a libertarian candidate. I think the last one might have been Gary Johnson. The most they ever get in total of votes is usually 2 to 10% of the population. Um, so to have half of all Bitcoin users identify themselves as libertarians is a pretty interesting statistic contrasted against that, in my opinion. Um, let's see if there's anything I missed. I try to keep notes on what I want to talk about, and then I get off track. uh, Oh, I did want to talk also. Some Bitcoin enthusiasts are also under the mistaken impression that Bitcoin is anonymous. And I don't know where this comes from. Maybe it comes from just not understanding the technology, as Mark Cuban kind of said, it's hard to understand. And through the popularization of certain, like Law and Order and things, fictionalized shows and evil uses of Bitcoin, the Silk Road. You always hear about the worst, right? You always hear that somebody's buying drugs on the Silk Road and they're sending this or that person to jail. But usually it's a small percentage of any crypto that's used in the illegal activities as opposed to cash. Cash is used in drug deals across every state, every city in the United States every single day to 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 do illicit activities, whether it's prostitution, illegal gambling, or drugs. Um, uh, I'd say a far higher percentage of fiat is used for illegal activities than crypto. Um, but because of the way it's portrayed in fiction and pop culture, that Bitcoin is anonymous and anybody can just log in and send anonymous money to anybody is not quite correct. Like I said, the exchanges are following the anti-money laundering laws. So, yeah, you may be able to get the Bitcoin from somebody anonymously, and you may even be able to make an anonymous cold wallet and transfer funds between you. However, when you got to sell that, if you want to sell that Bitcoin on an exchange for actual fiat, all those transactions can be followed. They can see this wallet transferring to that wallet. It's all public ledger. Um, and then, once it gets to the exchange, they can see what exchange. They can then subpoena that exchange probably. And if you've completed all that know your customer and anti-money laundering stuff that I was talking about earlier, they will identify you and then you will have to answer their questions or lawyer up. So I think that covers everything today. I kind of hopped around a little bit and I didn't go much into these articles. These are just the articles I was looking at, and I'd like to give credit to the people. Billy Bambro with Forbes for the Mark Cuban story that I'm commenting on. Already talked about Jose Alvarez for the libertarianism one. It's an older article, but that statistic stuck out to me. This one I didn't get to talk about too much. It's a new cold wallet custody solution, and GK8 is what it's called. But supposedly it allows you to do transactions without being connected to the internet, and I'm not sure how that happens in crypto, or if anybody's looked at this. If so, stop by in the comments. Tell us about the solution and what you like or don't like about it. I can't see them doing it without some sort of store and forward mechanism. I don't know how it works. So maybe I'll look at that later on today. There's also another story by Jason Weinstein from 2015. How can law enforcement leverage the blockchain in investigations? Um, I didn't really want to get into this too much because there's a lot of misstatements right off the bat. His opening sentence is there's a growing recognition that Bitcoin is just the first app. And even though he puts it in quotations, I really wouldn't like to spread the idea that Bitcoin is an app. Um, so that's why I didn't go too much into it. And to round it off here, we'll talk about price, which I'm sure nobody is happy about. I'm looking at coinanalyze.net. And you can see the overselling trend uh, over the past 30 days. We're at negative 18.43, and I probably should do a video that speaks more to price because people love price and they love price predictions. How much money am I going to make when this thing moons, or can you answer the biggest question everyone has in the XRP community, which is when Lambo? Um, and no, I mean you can Lambo right now if you have 200 million XRP. So uh, what I like about this is it's not a chart, it's not a bunch of lines, but it lists all the different moving averages, and you can see the current price, which is down from where we were at the last video by about 0.007 cents. So it's relatively stable, um, holding
Charge complete.
above 21 to 22. Not that much, not too exciting to talk about. So that's why I'm going in with some of the security stuff and the difference between hot wallets and cold wallets. So feel free again to subscribe and like to the videos, and leave in the comments why you like a hot wallet as opposed to a cold wallet. Maybe it makes it easier to trade, maybe, and you trust the two-factor authentication. Um, or if you don't, if you prefer these Ledger Nanos and some of the other solutions like this GK8, if you prefer those cold wallets, let us know that too. Anyway, thanks for watching, and have a good day.